Hello everyone and welcome those of you new to my channel, welcome back if you are returning. So this is the Turf and Surf community racing event, I think it is. So this is me changing my hardware settings down to 50% roughly, because there's no actual indicator as to where it's at. But I wanted to test out racing at 50%. Community Racing Festival. That's what it is, Turf and Surf. So, wanted to test out racing at 50% to see what it felt like. And I've got to say, especially after talking to all the peoples on Discord, I've got to say that I think I might leave it there for a little while. And as the race goes on, you'll see why here in a sec. So, I'm in the Pinarello 2024 in the new color of it, since I completed the Pinarello Power series. So I got the new color in that, sporting that in the DT Swiss disc wheels, because again, testing it out, seeing how I do. And start off here, not as hard as I thought I would go, but then had to push a little bit harder to get back into the pack. Again, my sauce is driving me up a wall. It would not display today in OBS, so I just went without went without it. But basically, through this whole time I'm looking at the draft, kind of seeing where I'm at. I'm hovering in the 40 watt savings to 100 watt savings here and there. So I'm feeling pretty good, doing pretty good, and I decide to just keep with the pack. So here I am, just kind of rolling through with the pack, doing the best I can, holding. Inadvertently, I end up holding my wattage a little bit higher than I thought I would be, and that's kind of the first initial, I guess, thing that I noticed about racing with the trainer difficulty at 50%. And so, as I'm going, again putting these big surges, 300-400 watt surges, to latch onto the back of the group after slowly falling off, and trying to figure out where I can place myself in the group to keep within the draft, but also not fall too far behind. And as you see, little by little, I'll put myself in the draft, and little by little I start slowly rolling off the back if I keep my wattage in the 250-ish range. I'm also on my 53 tooth chain ring up front, and somewhere between, I think, 14 and 17, whatever my gearing is in the back and the cassette. So I'm kind of hovering in the middle of my cassette in the back, and constantly, switching back and forth. I didn't realize my camera did not pick up either. So you don't get to see me struggling with the shifting or huffing and puffing. We'll see if that returns later. But yeah, so I'm here in the middle of the pack and just trying to hold on as best I can. And I'll get towards the front and drop my wattage a bit to right around 200, a little bit less, a little bit over, and then I'll slowly start drifting off the back. And then I got to put in these a little bit deeper surges. So this part, at this point right here, I kind of started resolving in my mind, I've got to keep that 250-ish watt range if I'm going to let myself drift towards the back. I've got to, stay there. And as this starts to happen, as we hit this little decline, as we're starting to leave the city, I notice that the pack starts splitting up. So I put in a surge to get up to the front group, which ended up being a lot harder surge than I thought I would have to get up there. Knowing that we're going to leave the city and we're going to start hitting the gravel, which is going to add some more resistance and slow us down a bit. And every time I've raced this race, people usually use this point to launch off the front. So you'll see one guy just kind of slowly push himself off the front. There you go, in the blue Tron. And I knew that everybody else is going to start picking up the pace, trying to keep up, trying to catch up. So I was, I did my best to stay on the back of this group, keeping in the low 300s, upper 200s, just so that way I can stay with this group. Because one of the times that I raced it, this is where I fell apart. When I was when I raced it at 100% trainer difficulty, just after I got my oval chain rings. And so I started falling apart here, and I thought it was because of the oval chain rings, because with oval chain rings, your power curve is different. So with a circular chain ring, your power curve kind of looks like an oval. If you were to map it, you have a very short, almost a short, sharp peak, and then the rest of it is, a little bit more of a like a rest on the leg as you're alternating left and right. With the oval chain ring, you get a longer power curve, which ironically ends up creating more of a circular pattern because you are pushing longer through the pedal stroke. And so I thought it was because of that. I thought it was because I just, new pedaling style. And so I attributed it to that back then. Now I'm kind of like, okay, maybe it was, partly it was that, getting used to that. But now that I've ridden it many kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, and raced it a bunch of times, I know that there's more to it, because I have strengthened overall. And so, as I'm riding here, my focus is just, stay with this front group, see how long I can go, see where I can rest, because you'll see my power, every now and then you'll see my power drop, and that's where I'm like right there. That's where I'm kind of, pausing my pedaling to catch up, essentially let my legs kind of catch a quick break, and then, pedaling back on. And then as we go up this incline here, I thought, let me do what I can. And I saw myself going a little too far off the front, but I did not want to go that hard or get off the front. And I stopped pedaling for a second. And boy, was that a mistake. Because as you can see, I've spent a lot of energy and just making a lot of flames with my fire socks, trying to catch up to this front group. And that hurt me big time. Definitely was not the right thing to do. What I should have done is stayed with that back group after the split, and then because you won't notice it, but I saw a couple names that basically caught up to this group again, and so I should have stayed with them and just rode up like I intended to, so that way I didn't expend as much energy. But I wasted a lot of energy on that surge. And so here we are coming up to my least favorite part of this stage, whatever it's called, this climb, because it is definitely a energy sucker. It's like that medium length climb where it's not steep enough to where you need to really focus on keeping a consistent cadence, but it's also long, so you end up pushing yourself harder for longer periods of time than necessary. And that's kind of what happens to me here. As you saw, I dropped my watts a bit because I was like, I need to kind of rethink my plan here. I let them continue going, and my focus was, let me stay within 250 to 300 watts if I can. And that was my focus, to kind of stay in that area. I knew I was going to pass people on the way up, especially since the ZRL race, where going up the grade, the top half of the grade, at 50% trainer difficulty. I knew I was going to ultimately pass people, and then kind of as I started getting there and dropping my wattage a bit. So what I was doing was I left essentially my gearing exactly the same. The whole entire climb, I was on my 53 tooth chain ring in the front, and somewhere in the middle my cassette in the back. And as I hit the flats, I would just let my watts drop to recover a bit, and then on the climbs I would push harder, so that way I kind of made up the difference, or at least I hope I made up the difference, and just kind of did what I usually do. And so obviously end up in no man's land by myself with the group off the front. They're about 15-20 seconds ahead of me. Person behind me is about 8 seconds back, and I was determined to not let them catch up. So I was keeping an eye on them, keeping an eye on not only the terrain but also my wattage. Going downhill, I knew I could ease up on the
on the pedaling a bit, so that way I can kind of maintain my momentum. And obviously I was speeding up, so I was doing good with maintaining my momentum, but also knowing that once I hit the flats, I will give myself that my legs would have had enough break to let my energy kind of catch back up. Because I don't know about you guys, and maybe let me know in the comments if you get to this part and if you feel the same way. I feel like when I'm riding, I can put a lot of power down, but my power band in terms of like my usage of my quads is very short. Like I could burst hard for 10-15 seconds, but after that I feel like my legs are essentially starved of oxygen, and then I gotta let my legs rest a bit, and then all the blood and everything rushes back in, and muscles start working again, and then I can go again. I can keep going. And so I'm trying to, with these races and with the adjusting the trainer difficulty, that's my focus. I'm trying to get better at holding a higher level wattage for longer periods of time. So I'm looking to bring up my 5-minute power, my 20-minute power, so that way I can, ultimately in races like this, keep up with that front group and stay with the front group without having to struggle as much. and so, on the again, going back to the topic of trainer difficulty, if you notice, my RPMs stay in the 90s, like 80s, 90s, around there almost the entire time. And so even though my wattage is low, it's because I'm switching gears to compensate, but my RPMs are staying really high, which is unusual for me. I'm not a fan of pedaling that fast. I feel like that is aerobically taxing on my body. Excuse me. I don't do good with, essentially moving my legs that fast. And so I was on the Discord group, which obviously the links are in the channel or in the description. So check those guys out. Different Discord channels. We were talking, and that I kind of made me think that this is riding at 50% is probably a good opportunity to help me bring up my aerobic base versus just trying to put out raw power all the time and kind of muscle through some of these courses. Because while yes, I can, in instances like this, I'm spinning at 90 RPMs, doing 300 plus watts, and about to pass this person. I think I passed probably a couple more people, maybe. Let me see who's in front of me. No, so this is the only person I end up passing on this climb. But I can power through it. I can on these shorter sub 5 minute type of climbs. I can power. I can hold the upper 200s, low 300s the entire time. Yeah, there's certain times where I have to let my wattage drop or stop pedaling for a second to kind of compose myself, because again, these are higher RPMs that I am not used to at all. And like I did before in this section, as soon as I get to the blue sections where it flattens out a bit, I let my wattage drop, knowing that hey, this person's right now 11 seconds behind. They'll catch up a little bit, but as soon as we hit that climb again, I'm gone. I know I'm going to keep going. And so that's kind of where it trailed off to. And getting back to the discussion topics on the Discord groups, we're talking about how obviously one of the big benefits of the trainer difficulty is in situations like mine where I have a 25 to 11 rear cassette, because I live in South Florida where it's very flat. I don't need a 35 tooth cassette in the back to surmount some big climb. I can get by with with my 25 to 11 10-speed cassette and 5339 front chain rings. In this instance, giving me the ability to adjust the trainer difficulty kind of simulates me changing out my configuration hardware in terms of chain rings and cassette. And so that also ultimately changes how I use my muscles and where what my strategy is going to be, and that's the kind of thought that I was lingered with. Obviously I hit 34th place, which I was very happy with. My Zwift score still went down, but the thought that I was left with, and I'll leave you guys with as this comes to a close, is where do you see yourself using this as a strategy to implement into your races? Like should being able to adjust your trainer difficulty be something that maybe you plan ahead and look at, you know, hey, if this is really flat course, leave it at 100%, ride as hard as you can, you'll be fine. Versus, you know, a stage like this where there's some climbing, not much, but more specifically, the Zwift Racing League stage, the Glyph Heights, where there's a lot of climbing, a lot more climbing than normal, then maybe you want to adjust the trainer difficulty down some, so that way you get more of a, I feel like it's more of an advantage, but it's more of an adjustment like you would if you had to, you know, switch bikes or switch components prior to a, you know, maybe a more tailored approach. Maybe that's a better way to say it. More tailored approach to the stage that you're racing. So I will have had, because I went way over the video length, but I will have had these with power up on the screen. So let me know your thoughts on trainer difficulty use and strategies behind it, and we will see you at the next race.